Okay, hold on. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another requested live comic vault. Tis I, Captain Logan, and look, it's Austin, the Day Ghost. That's how sponsorships work. You just say the thing. It's like, you're not even going to say, this video is sponsored by this thing, Dr. Pepper. Okay, move on. That was my contractual obligation. We're not sponsored by Dr. Pepper. Austin thinks we're in Spider-Man 2 right now. Go! Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the Gail Simone run on Deadpool. This is a thing that I had never looked at, but had always heard things about, and this was requested by bluedragonfive, so thanks very much to you. bluedragonfive helped me out with a project with Counting Cryptofreaks. I asked somebody to go in and do the count for me, going all the way back, because I've over... Oh, that's good. Hold on. I meant to check that before we started. Okay, you should be in now.
Okay, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Yeah, you're good now. Thanks, folks in the comments. Really appreciate it. We're starting really late tonight, by the way. Sorry very much for the late start. Please excuse that. But anyway... Blue Dragon 5 did some counting for me with Counting Cryptofreaks, and I offered whoever did that for me a request, and so he picked Gail Simone's Deadpool. Austin, right out the gate, this is a thing that I always assumed must be a lot longer than it is. I'm kind of shocked that Gail Simone's one of the first names that you hear people talk about with comic book Deadpool, and she only had 5 issues in the actual main book, and then it goes on to a thing called Agent X, which is, I believe, also another 5-issue miniseries, and that, as far as I can tell, is what she did with this character. This is back in 2003. And I mean, I guess I'm not surprised, considering how popular Deadpool is now, with the sensibilities that especially we have with movie Deadpool, that seems to be really highly influenced by this, that this is as popular as it is. But I thought she was around a lot longer on it.
Yeah, and I didn't even know she did Deadpool. I mainly think of her for her work at DC.
Yeah, of course. And that's what most people think of her for. And she's got smatterings of things at Marvel here and there, but obviously what she's most known for is stuff like Secret Six and Birds of Prey
And New 52 Batgirl, I think was her, yeah. All that wonderful stuff.
Yeah, and that book, I really hated the kind of pigeonhole they put her in at the beginning of that, and there's a lot of things about that book I hate, but when I finally let myself read some of it, I mean, it's Gail Simone, so it's pretty well written, even as, you know, backed into a corner as she and a lot of creators were with New 52 stuff, but...
Oh, definitely.
Anyway...
That was always one of those New 52 books that I wanted to try and then never ended up getting to. But...
there's some Joker stuff in that that's absolutely haunting.
Oh, cool. I'm guessing with the Death in the Family tie-in, because every single Bat book had to tie into each Snyder.
That was the best one, though, at least of what I ended up looking at.
No, for sure.
So, like I said, this comes out in 2003 and is the tail end of the Deadpool run, the volume that started with Joe Kelly back in the mid-90s and I guess mid to late 90s. And so Deadpool has a couple of volumes before it becomes a monthly. It's miniseries first, both of which I think are kind of sought after and expensive to buy now, especially that first one. And then Joe Kelly's on it for a good long time, and I think there's one or two people on it before Gail Simone gets to it. And at the start of her story, I get the sense that she expected to be on this for a while, and then, at least that's the way it reads, and then suddenly, like so many things, of course, it gets canceled, and she has to wrap things up very quickly. I don't know if that's actually the history of it, but it certainly reads that way to me. And there's even a joke about how, it suddenly gets canceled. in some editorial stuff at the beginning of an issue, which is pretty funny, comparing it to how long this went versus what was it, Cannonball? And I remember that first issue being all over the place, and then nobody ever talked about that book again. But anyway, so it's kind of interesting that she is as well known and beloved on this book, and she kind of took it to its grave. And then Way starts the fourth volume, and he was, I believe, on that for a really long time. He's one of the other big names that you hear bandied about with as major architects of this character.
Yeah, because he's the only other Deadpool writer that like I've read, and I've only read the first trade of that, but it was like a bigger trade, so it was first like however many issues.
And I don't think I've read more than a couple of disparate issues here and there of Way. He is pretty polarizing because if memory serves, and I'm going from years and years old memory, I haven't looked at old Deadpool in quite a while, but if memory serves, Way is the writer that kind of transitions us out of the kind of Joe Kelly more like still comedic but more broody and tragic Deadpool into more of what he was known as in the mid to late 2000s, where he was kind of thought of as just a kind of meme bait character, and that was the thing that brought a lot of people in, but at that point the pathos was kind of gone, and it was hard to take it seriously at all. It was kind of just a joke, as opposed to a joke with some layers of again tragedy.
Yeah, that's kind of how I remember it being, where it's just kind of like, oh, wacky, weird stuff.
Yeah, just hijinks. Mm-hmm. And that ended up being a gateway for a lot of people into comics in the first place, I think, or at least some folks, where it was like, reading newspaper strip type material, and then there's this whole world of actually more serious comics, and what is reading serious comics like, and reading like actual drama that moves you and inspires you in some way, or that you resonate with in some way. And anyway, I think I called that the transition into that. I think Gail Simone is actually kind of the transition into the Way thing, kind of, because she's still keeping track of very much everything that was happening before this with the Joe Kelly stuff, continuity-wise, but I think she's kind of transitioning Deadpool more into something that's supposed to be a little bit more relatable, or at least more sympathetic, but I didn't read everything in between, so I'm not sure how much other writers got us to this place, but that was the thing that kind of hit me hardest looking at these 5 issues, where I was like, okay, I've complained forever that the Deadpool movie had to kind of water the character down a little bit to make general audiences more to make the character more accessible to general audiences. And if you just straight up adapted this, I think you more or less get the same character, the same take in a movie that you did in that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I haven't read that early stuff, but that was always the sense that I got from like the Joe Kelly stuff. Really, I've just seen your reviews of the old classics volumes, so that's where my knowledge comes from. My knowledge comes from your knowledge,
and that was nearly a decade ago at this point. Yeah. And I haven't gone back to that stuff since. I mean, I should say, full disclosure, I've never really thought of myself as a Deadpool guy, even though I've done kind of an alarming amount of content on the character. Mostly just because of Cullen Bunn, who I've always considered more or less a workman writer. The guy's able to do, 1 million books a month, and he's always somewhere between serviceable and quite good. And then you get to Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe, and that's like on this whole other level where I've always thought where Cullen Bunn reads like this like powerhouse kind of writer, and I always think of that as my Deadpool, and so and nothing else quite gets to that place, and that's an out of continuity thing, and he's got very much his own voice and style for that character that doesn't exactly scream Ryan Reynolds as much to me as some other things. Maybe his later Deadpool work starts starts to get closer and closer to that. This stuff reads like exactly what Reynolds was looking at, almost as if he read these 5 issues and tailored his entire performance based on that.
Which is funny because reading it, I had Nolan North's Deadpool was the voice in my head.
Oh, did you really?
It.
Interesting.
Hmm. But I can see the kind of Ryan Reynolds-y thing. This is definitely like just meme-y Deadpool, where it's just kind of just that. Here's the joke. You just kind of go through.
And again, Joe Kelly is just as wordy as this stuff. Like, I don't mean to give you the sense that that was a much more serious book and we kept getting, kind of rushing farther and farther to the meme thing and the kind of comic strip thing. But it did seem like darker, a little bit more of an edge to it, where it felt like Deadpool was mostly joking and clowning around as a defense mechanism in a diffuse tense situations, and he was really this totally broken guy who doesn't understand heroism or altruism or anything. Here we've got a Deadpool that sometimes reads that way, and much of the time reads more like he's got a code like he does in that movie. And again, I don't know if we actually transition to that place or if this is just more of Gail Simone's take on it. But that was the thing I was really kind of surprised to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and having not read Joe Kelly's run, I always got more so the impression that it's a more serious world, but Deadpool's kind of like the funny aspect of it.
And that's the thing I did not care for with this, where everybody is kind of transformed into a more jokey character, like it's Deadpool's world, and they're just living in it.
Yeah, like we introduce a homeless character that works for Deadpool, who is just Ralph Wiggum. Like he exists just to throw out non sequiturs.
Yep.
And non sequiturs can be funny. I have you guessed it, it's Frank Stallone shirt. But it's not funny when that's just it, and it's just over and over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and initially that guy. So there's this character, and I'll make, as I always do, Austin give us a quick synopsis here in a minute. But there's because he's really good at them. There's this character that Deadpool, for no good reason, just because I guess Gail Simone wants to establish her own supporting cast. And again, that's part of why I'm finding myself thinking she must have thought she was going to be here a lot longer, because she's wiping the board a little bit and bringing in new characters and setting up a new status quo. But you got this guy that Deadpool calls Ratbag. He's just this homeless guy who's who has a mental condition, and nothing he says makes any sense, and he's this real sad, pathetic guy who can't really do anything, and he comes in to try to get a job, or maybe he's just wandering around, who knows, and Deadpool says, yeah, let's hire him and to follow me around and write my memoirs, even though he can't put 5 words together and make a sentence. And he's just there for the sake of comic relief in a book that's already just comic relief. And then all of a sudden you get to the last issue and suddenly we're supposed to really feel something for this guy. That was a little bit strange, but I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, no, that is true. He's Ralph Wiggum up until he's not, and then you have to care.
I'm going to get off this extremely sexual cover for a second, I think, and go to the...
Oh, I didn't even realize you had art up.
I did, yeah.
Getting uncomfortable.
Nah, it just occurred to me that 15 minutes of that, somebody might be like, hey, could you change the picture? So anyway, Austin, why don't you go ahead and give us a quick synopsis of this whole thing, and then we'll start getting into more specifics, would you?
Okay, so Deadpool by Gail Simone is Gail Simone doing a Deadpool thing where he's kind of...
the story is called Healing Factor.
That is true. I actually forgot that, but that it is called Healing Factor. So Deadpool, he's doing his thing, and he's got to take out some guy, but he thinks he accidentally takes out 4 instead, and it's this big thing that blows him up into being a celebrity, and... this guy hates him for that, so
This guy called
he
Black Swan
yeah, Black Swan,
in
yeah.
Germany.
So Black Swan, he like sets Deadpool up and he gives him a mind disease, and I guess it like messes with his brain, and he can't get words right or anything like that. And then he just kind of does Deadpool-y things
And it
issue to
also gives
issue.
him massive headaches and throws his aim off.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then he beats the Black Swan, and then the book's over. It got canceled.
And the interim is so you had that too, right? Where like this is supposed to keep going.
Well, it kind of just stops. Like it's just like, okay, this is like a story. Maybe it's more like episodic in that sense, and that each issue he's kind of doing a different thing, but
That's
he's
what's weird
dealing
about
with
it, though,
that.
as a 5-issue story,
Hmm.
is that, yeah, it certainly has a beginning, a middle, and an end, but the middle 3 issues are kind of interlude issues, right? Like, each of the, we slowly progress the overarching narrative, kind of, but there's a lot of filler with, just really jokey situations, and each of those is procedural. So it really feels like, if you looked at this like a TV show, it really feels like you have a whole season within 5 issues where your pilot is establishing that Deadpool has been given this illness and this uh, virus that works. And I thought this was really clever, by the way, that it works like a computer virus where you have a mutant. I assume Black Swan is a mutant. I guess I'm not sure where he gets his power. We're not really told. But he is able to, like, I know that like biological viruses exist before computer viruses, but it read kind of clever where he was able to like hack the brain biologically and specifically move things around and change stuff and rewire the brain. And so, if this was a TV pilot, it'd be like, well, we've established our big bad, and every now and again we're gonna like touch back in on that guy while Deadpool's investigating and trying to find him and get his revenge on him and all of that. But in the interim, he is a mercenary and he's getting jobs. And so we have 3 issues where he gets 3 different mercenary jobs, each more preposterous than the last. And then you get to the last issue and it's your season or your series finale. Well, I guess not series because it's a big cliffhanger kind of ending. But
That's a show that got canceled.
those issues in the middle, they're fun, and like I said, they do to some degree kind of progress the narrative a little bit. But it doesn't read like the middle of this story. It feels like 3 kind of random off the beaten path kind of stories. It's like your bookends are the X-Files mythology episodes, and the ones in the middle are the procedural go solve a crime kind of episode, or go try to solve a mystery kind of episodes.
Hmm. Yeah, and certain things just kind of progress slowly. Like there's a whole plot with Deadpool's secretary that's told in like 3 scenes across 3 separate issues.
Yeah, and if you blink, you missed the establishing that, because she's
Hmm.
got a black eye, and we're told by Deadpool, oh, she must have some kind of abusive boyfriend or something. But it's like, we'll put a pin in that, and it's forever before we go back to that. I kind of forgot about it, and then all of a sudden she's just landed in the hospital, and it's like that came out of nowhere and was also really conveniently timed. That happens, as far as I can tell, unrelated to the A story. Like, it's just she's got an abusive boyfriend or husband or whatever who puts her in the hospital at exactly the same time as Deadpool is finally about to go up against the Black Swan. And explain this to me. We're jumping all over the place, but I must have missed something, because I went back and skimmed again and could not figure out where this was or if it was established earlier. But the Black Swan, this read convoluted to me. Tell me what I'm missing. The
Hmm.
Black Swan tells his henchman guy to kill Deadpool's secretary because she figured out where he is. Like, that's how Deadpool is going to be able to go find him. When did that happen? Where is that mentioned the first time? I was. Did I miss something?
I think just because like it's mainly through Taskmaster, but I guess they decide because he gets to Taskmaster through her, I think.
Oh, is that
And
what it
it's
is?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't even notice that she was involved in any of that, so I was like, what is happening? It just felt like we were trying to relate these two things somehow.
Well, you see, it's about memes though. That's what you're supposed to be attached to.
But I mean, like overall, the story doesn't read like it's just there as an excuse for goofy jokes. It just seems like it's got some interim issues that are more or less just supposed to be kind of fun throwaway stories of their own. Like I found myself getting invested in the first and the fifth issue, but then I was kind of looking at my watch a little bit, uh, like wanting things to start happening through those other issues, and that's just not the stuff that I come to this character for, even though that's what a lot of other people come to this character for, because Joe Kelly, I thought, usually did a good job of kind of giving us both. And when you had interlude stuff, you could always kind of tell it was an interlude. He would, if memory serves, he would kind of telegraph that. And those things very often felt kind of wholly skippable. And here it isn't. So, like, you get to the second issue, I think, where Deadpool goes up. Or no, the third issue, where Deadpool has defeated the Rhino and miniaturized him with Hank Pym technology, and then has him on a keychain, which is legitimately amusing. And he's carrying around the Rhino on a keychain. There's a bit where he says, "I'm going to take the action figure." I like that. And then at the end of that issue, he's solved a plot against Dazzler. And I'm not looking at page count, and I'm thinking that the issue is nearly over, and then I have to read like 8 pages of tiny Rhino just like screwing with Deadpool, trying to like run into his leg and stuff, and I was like, this scene is going on way too long.
And all the Dazzler stuff is super rushed. Like he shows up and it's like, oh, you gotta help Dazzler, and he's like, okay, I gotta look for the assassin. Oh, there he is. Oh, okay, we took care of it. Okay,
Yeah,
bye.
and there's a lot of fun stuff in that. Like I like that it's an assassin in a disco ball. I like that the assassin's whole motivation is just that he hates disco and he can't deal with Dazzler bringing back disco. Like I said, each plot is more preposterous than the last, and that stuff's all really fun. Like I think Simone keeps topping herself with the ridiculousness of all of that. But at the end of the day, some of this just kind of comes down to taste, obviously, and subjectivity. Like, do you find this funny or not? And if if you find standard, more modern Deadpool humor that I guess might sort of start with Simone, I can't tell for sure. But if you find that inherently amusing, it might, and especially if that's what you come to this stuff for, it might. Propel you through these issues. But even if I found that stuff funnier than I do, it would still feel a little lopsided, Austin.
Yeah, I think because for me, I'm not a Deadpool fan. I don't really like Deadpool, and I had a really hard time reading this. I
Oh,
was
did you
like,
really?
yeah, I was like, this is kind of dreadful.
Were you joking when you told me this? You
Oh
thought this
yeah,
is great because I thought you like legitimately really liked it and were surprised that I was a little lukewarm on it.
oh
And
no, I
my
especially
apologies, folks, because again, I know this is kind of a beloved run with Deadpool fans, and a lot of people when I posted about this today seemed really excited that we were covering it. I was like, ooh, I don't want to disappoint anybody. Like this is a taste thing. When we got more into telling actual story, I was with it. Like I don't know if you had that, but like I thought the Black Swan
a
stuff
bit
was
more so,
fine.
yeah.
I enjoyed the way Deadpool goes out at the end of this, where spoilers obviously always with vaults, but he blows himself up in order to blow up Black Swan, and you think that he's you know either dead or in pieces or something at the end. It ends on a black page, and he's apparently supposed to come back immediately after this under a new moniker, and I assume with Agent X, and I've not read that. If you get this in the Deadpool Classics volumes, that volume has all of this, and I assume that people, because when I found that out, Austin, I wasn't totally sure if we should cover this by itself, and I was like, well, we already read it. We're like 12 hours away from the show, so I guess we should go ahead and do it. But with Austin was like, I'm not reading any more of this. But my assumption is that when people say Gail Simone run on Deadpool, they mean all of this together. These 5 issues and then the Agent X issues. But I don't know, because I've never heard anybody talk about the fact that this continues in another book, and that Deadpool's going by a different moniker.
But I mean, I also had never heard of Gail Simone's Deadpool, so what do I know?
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, my assumption is that when he dies at the end of this and comes back, whatever kind of regeneration he has, probably... I was just imagining him as the Doctor from Doctor Who for a minute. Whatever regeneration he has, I would assume is how we finally get around his having that virus that's slowly crippling him. Because there's no antidote for it, it's making him lose his memories. Eventually he's supposed to be, a vegetable, and his brain is supposed to be soup. And so how do you get him back to normal? And so I assume that was Gail Simone's way to kind of write out of that. But again, it just feels really weird that we do all of that in 5 issues. This feels like a 30 to 40 issue run where we just didn't get most of the issues in the middle of it.
Yeah, there's just a point where it kind of goes, crap, I'm about to be canceled. Okay, he blows up.
How do we make this big? How do we make this important? And, I mean, I say that, like, my assumption is all roads were going to lead to this eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, but I think that's
it reads like Deadpool's Ragnarok or something, like, but it seems like there's supposed to be a bunch of stuff that happens in the middle.
Yeah, no, and that's why you kind of get the assistant stuff that's just kind of like, one scene, okay, gone. Ralph Wiggum, he got his memory back. Okay, now he's gone. He's kind of got to wrap everything up, tie it into a bow.
And, like, Simone's got, even in those interim issues, some nice bits of foreshadowing and telegraphing and stuff, if you're really paying attention. Like, there's a bit where... Deadpool, in that comedy scene I said I think goes on way too long with the Rhino, where he pretends like he has an antidote to the Ant-Man juice that made him small, and then it turns out that, and we knew that he didn't, but he puts Cheese Whiz on him and is like, ha ha ha, it's not real, it's Cheese Whiz. I mean, like, Gail Simone is doing her job right, because Deadpool humor is, I guess, unless she kind of helped invent it, but, like, I don't know, Deadpool humor very often reads like a 12 or a 13-year-old came up with it, and, like...
No, I do agree with that. A lot of the Deadpool dialogue reminds me of, like, that part in the movie where he turns and is like, did I leave the stove on? Where there's no, like, setup and punchline, he just says wacky thing, and it's like, okay...
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like it's supposed to be funny because it's authentic. It's like, that's a thing Deadpool says, and that's why it's funny. It's like Deadpool has 100 catchphrases instead of just the one that you get with, like, a Saturday Night Live character. You said chimichangas, ha ha. You said Betty White, ha ha ha. And I wonder if the Betty White thing starts here, because she does do a Betty White joke in this.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even realize that was a Deadpool thing.
He does it in the movies, and like there's a lot of that stuff where I'm like, how much of the movie stuff starts with this?
See, this is how much I know Deadpool. It's like, I knew like chimichangas.
He got Betty White to promote the Deadpool movie. That's how much Betty White is a Deadpool
That's
thing.
right, yeah, I forgot about that.
And that was legitimately funny, by the way, when he got her to talk about how good it was, and then she was just swearing up a story. Like, it's really funny.
No, that video is really funny, yeah.
But anyway, the point I was making is with the Cheese Whiz thing, just weird things coming out of my mouth tonight. With the Cheese Whiz foreshadowing, Deadpool is, or Simone, I think, is going, okay, let's set up the fact that at the end of all of this, Deadpool himself is going to hope that there's an antidote for what's happening to him, and then we'll find out that there isn't one. So I mean, like there's some real narrative structure here, but it keeps interrupting itself so much with other stuff and doesn't feel real tightly plotted that it's easy to kind of miss that stuff. And I'm not saying that it's bad because I'm not even saying it's bad, but I'm not saying that like it's a bad idea to ever get around like standard basic narrative formula. But at the same time, there are things that are really easy to miss because they're not brought, I think, enough to the forefront, like all the stuff going on with the secretary's boyfriend and all of that. I didn't realize I was supposed to feel anything about that until we got to the last issue. Did you not feel like there was just a complete tonal shift? Like from page 1 on issue 5, suddenly it's about things? Where he's like, he's feeling bad because his secretary got hurt and put in the hospital, and he's talking about the difference between the superhero crowd, like his world, like he's a mercenary, but like the world of costumed people versus regular people, and like the way regular people mourn, and superheroes, or the costumed world doesn't mourn the same way. All of that was really interesting, and I was like, why couldn't the whole story have been about this stuff? Like, where was all of that? You had this total shift where all of a sudden it was like, oh, now it's a thinking book. Okay. And it started as a little bit more of a thinking book.
Mm-hmm. No, it's strange, because it's like, we gotta do this, have Deadpool, like, contemplate, all this stuff, and like, he thinks he should kill this boyfriend, but she doesn't want him to, because then it's on her conscience. But it also doesn't have time to get into it. It's like, we got to do this in 2 scenes. Wrap up. Okay, now we got to go on to the next thing.
Yeah, that stuff's really awkward. But again, more engaging, story-wise. And like, if the whole thing was just a big joke from, the word go, and I've read Deadpool stuff like that, and again, it's a taste thing. It's not always my bag, but at least it's more consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no.
I'm surprised I'm as critical of this as I am, because I like Simone as a writer, and to her credit, she comes into this and she does the job, certainly. Like, if you'd read other stuff by her even before this, I'm not sure you'd be able to tell it was her. And I'll also say, to her credit, you'd never guess it was a woman.
Mm-hmm. No, and I agree with you with that, because I also just don't like Deadpool. And it reads like Deadpool to me, so it's like, she's writing this character that I don't like in the way that he is, which I don't like. So it's, it's, like I said, it's a matter of taste. So, no, I don't really throw it at her feet. Like, it is what it is.
At the same time as it seems like she might be establishing some norms with this character, it also feels like she's intentionally trying to disappear as much from the work as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that. Just trying to, like, melt into that Deadpool-y goofiness.
Was there anything in this that you found especially funny?
Yes, I had one laugh in this book that made me laugh really hard, and it was a background thing. It was when he's walking through his office in the first issue. I think it's the first issue. There's like a live-action portrait that he has on the wall that's like an actual like picture.
That happens a few times in this book.
Yeah, and it's a picture of George Bush and Deadpool, and it's this like guy in a really awful Deadpool costume.
Oh, I missed that one!
With George Bush, and I thought that was hysterically funny.
I probably didn't pull that page for the art for this one, or I would go look at that. But yeah, I didn't notice that one. There's a few. There's some like nude artwork in the background at one point that's like a real painting.
Like a few scenes later, yeah.
Slipmaker in the comments, you've mastered the art of capturing the authorial voice I hate. I'm not sure what you're quoting, but I agree with this.
I think he's quoting himself, because he said it.
Why did he put quotes around it if he's saying? And then, I'm skipping around with art here. I'm not showing you what I'm looking at. I don't know how important.
Oh yeah, Greg Cox wrote the Dark Knight Rises novelization.
Thank you. That's our tell for when we're supposed to do that. Thanks for doing it before I brought it up.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate
It
that.
amazes me that every show we do, I manage to sneak it in there and nobody really notices.
But yeah, Austin, it's weird to me that you've got this last issue that is taking itself a lot more seriously, and suddenly things seem to matter, and there are stakes that I'm supposed to care about. And then Deadpool interrupts. He does things like this. He'll interrupt everything all of a sudden just to make a bunch of crank calls, and suddenly we're just right back to uh, the situation. It seems to be there just to serve jokes instead of the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, okay, we need this series of jokes of him calling people, so that is what it is. This is kind of off topic, but just because I'm looking at the art, do you have to get the whole page now because of the Comicsology change? Or no, you probably got it off of Marvel Unlimited, so what am I talking about?
Yeah.
Never mind. That was a dumb thing to ask.
No, it's fine because I've been hearing something about Comicsology changing things, and I don't know what they've done. Would you explain it to me?
So, from what Dan has said to me, and it doesn't affect the mobile app that I have, so I don't really have to deal with it. But they changed it so that Comicsology and Kindle, I guess, are on the same, are like the same thing, and you got to go through Amazon on your desktop to use it, and you now can't go like panel to panel. You just have the whole page.
But on your phone, do you still have panel-to-panel view?
On the phone app, I still have it. Yeah.
On that app or on a tablet? Because it wouldn't
yeah.
affect me if it still let you do it on a tablet, because that's how I read. I don't read it on a desktop anyway. But it sucks that they don't give you the option anymore, and they will lose subscribers over that.
Yeah, no, Dan was really mad about it, and
I knew Dan. Pardon me. I knew Dan was mad about something with Comicsology, and I wasn't sure what was happening.
it was at least a little better when I told him about the mobile thing, because he was also using it to get images for his Conan show.
Yeah.
So at least he can get it that way, but it is still pretty frustrating.
But anyway, we digress. So let's just real briefly go through the three interlude issues just to mention what each of those are, because that's not where really the main plot stuff happens. So you have the second issue, and like I said, each of these gets goofier, so I think. So the first of these, in the second issue, you have Deadpool going after the rhino's horn because there's a collector that wants it. An elderly collector guy who has a wife who's significantly younger than him who wants him to not have the horn for some reason, and I never quite understood what that reason was.
Oh, Cap, you're so innocent. This was like this was a real thing that was happening with rhinos, where they were taking rhinos and cutting their horns off as a
Well, I knew about that, but did she think he was a real rhino?
That's just the joke. It's Deadpool.
Oh, okay. I never in a million years would have understood that.
That whole thing is strange, but that's what's supposed to be
I
happening.
was taking it entirely too seriously, clearly. Shouldn't have done that.
It's okay, Cap. You'll learn about it one day.
I thought that, yeah, when I grow up...
You have 5 kids, but you'll learn what it is one day.
I thought the payoff for all of that at the end with the rhino getting tiny and turning into a keychain was actually legitimately pretty great. But that was kind of my main takeaway with that one.
Just the rhino on a keychain?
Yeah, that's funny.
Did it remind you of Gorilla Grodd in a jar being held up by Brandon Routh?
Well, now that you've said that, sure. Hi, bluedragonfive. He says, Cap, she wants the old man to die so she can inherit his money. I get that, but what does that have to do with getting a rhino horn?
Well, because she doesn't want him to get an aphrodisiac.
Oh, I see. But that seems to be related to, like, other things, where it's like... Anyway. It's like, yeah, she doesn't want to have to, like, be physically involved with him, but what does that have to do with getting his money?
Nothing. She just wants his money, but also doesn't want to have to be with him physically.
Okay, I see. So there's a lot of, like, Deadpool having one step forward, two steps back in this, as opposed to the kind of just constant beatdown he usually has, and then by the end, the way he has to pay for having any success or moments of happiness is he blows himself up. That's kind of the point of this whole thing at the end of the day. So he at the beginning, like we talked about earlier, is suddenly this big celebrity because he's believed to have taken out this major crime group completely on accident. And then in that second issue, he somehow manages to get $1 million for getting a tiny rhino horn. And so, like, things are looking up for Deadpool. And then we get to the third issue, and he thwarts the Dazzler plot, like we talked about earlier. There's not really much else to say about that.
Yeah, no, it really is. He just shows up. He's like, "Oh, you got to stop this assassin from killing Dazzler." Oh, there she is. Okay, there we go.
And then let's spend a third of the issue with shenanigans with him and Rhino. Okay,
Yeah,
and then
initially I thought they were gonna do like a Bjork stalker thing with that, but that's not the route they took.
And then in the fourth issue, we get the most bizarre of the assassination plots. You want to explain that one, Austin? With the man with his mutant son with a face we never see him?
Yeah, so a man, he's like, oh, the guy across the street, the building over there, he's very mean to my son. And he wrote this mean letter. I need you to go kill him.
He's mean, and he hates me because I fired him on his birthday.
Oh, that's right. Which is a joke that they say like 18 times.
Yes, and that's why he wants revenge. But he's doing it through blackmail with the guy's son because we're acting like the mutant situation is exactly the same as it was in like the early 90s, and I can't tell. Like, I want to look at X-Men books happening at the same time as this to see if it's really as taboo as this book acts like to be a mutant right now at this point in Marvel history.
Yeah,
It's just a question I had.
I've only read Stan Lee X-Men, so.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, the X-Men is a huge blind spot for me.
But yeah, he's like, oh no, he's gonna, this ex-employee of mine that hates me is going to use my son for blackmail and tell everyone he's a mutant and that will ruin me. And I'm like, I wonder if that's true. It's just a question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I guess the mutant thing is just kind of always there. But I don't know if they're like knocking your doors down and taking you if you're a mutant.
But yeah, and I'm not totally sure what the whole point was with concealing his face. Or like, am I just is there a joke there? I'm not also that I'm not getting because I'm too naive or whatever, or is it that that the idea is supposed to be? Because now I'm seeing that everywhere.
Yeah, the little
getting
boy face is not a sex joke.
I'm getting paranoid about it.
No, I think it's just supposed to be like, he looks really bad, so you just have to imagine it.
Yeah,
because it's worse.
Okay,
I guess, but it leads to Deadpool's character arc of, it's okay, little boy, I'm also ugly. Yeah, but Deadpool, you have a mask. Oh, you're right. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of my image illusion thing.
Yep. Yeah, good call. Something else that with this panel we're looking at right now that this has in common with the Deadpool movies is he suddenly doesn't look anything like as grotesque as he used to. And that was weird to see in comics, because I'm pretty sure, and again, it's been a long time, but if you go back to Joe Kelly, I'm pretty sure that his face was a lot more hideous. And in the movie, it seemed like that was a compromise we made so that we could actually see Ryan Reynolds' face some, and he just doesn't look as horrifying as the movie pretends like he does. The comics beat him to that. He doesn't look all that horrifying here either.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because that was always my understanding, and then he takes his mask off, and it's like, oh, he's just kind of got like some pepperoni.
He's got some splotches on his face, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like you could just put some
maybe
makeup
even
over
less
it,
ugly than Ryan Reynolds' version. Yeah.
Because, I mean, those are some good prosthetics in that movie, don't get me wrong, but they could have gone a lot farther with it if it was supposed to be as grotesque as they were talking about it.
Yeah, it's just kind of underplayed. But it is there at least, like across his entire face. It's not just pieces.
So yeah, I had a question with this issue,
Mm-hmm.
Austin. So Deadpool says initially, this seemed like a contradiction, and tell me if you agree. Deadpool initially tells this guy who wants to hire him to kill the next door neighbor that he doesn't really need him to explain anything about it because he's an assassin, so he's just a point and shoot kind of weapon. That's what he says. He says, just explain it to me, or just tell me what I'm going to go kill, and then I'll go kill it. And then a page later, he's like, he finds out that the blackmail plot with the kid is involved, and he goes, "Oh, that's against the assassin code. We can't have that. I'm gonna go get him now because there's a kid involved." And I'm like, "You just said you didn't care. Like." You would have gone and killed the guy no matter what it was because you didn't care. I just thought that was really weird.
I guess now it's personal.
I guess.
I don't know.
But if that kind of thing means that much to him, you'd think that he would always want to vet the situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, exactly. And he doesn't really seem to up until that point.
Another question I have, now that we've explained the three interim things, with the A story is there's a big reveal at the end with Black Swan. And I keep wanting to make a joke about that movie, but I've never seen it. So I can't. But there's...
Well, the Black Swan wants Rhino's horn for Natalie Portman.
Anyway, you can't say things like that on this channel. So
I didn't go as far.
I get that we're doing a Deadpool comic right now, but anyway, so Black Swan has a big reveal at the end that he is actually the person, the assassin that killed the four, whatever they're called, the big crime group at the beginning, when Deadpool thought that somehow or rather he accidentally shot all four of them through the chest while dropping out of a ceiling and nobody else around them because there's this big crowd around them. And he's like, I don't know how I did that, but they're dead, so it must have been me. And then it's treated like a big reveal that it wasn't him, it was this Black Swan guy, even though we knew the Black Swan was there. And he says at the beginning when he, and I thought this was a fun idea, when he gets Deadpool to come to him under the ruse of I want you to kill someone, oh, that person is me, in order to get him in a room so that he can do the virus thing. Mm-hmm. He explains everything to Deadpool in that moment at the beginning, except for the fact that he's the one that actually killed those guys. And then at the end, it's a big reveal. And what I'm wondering is, why was it a big secret? And the way it kind of plays is that it's supposed to be maybe just to conceal it from his henchman guy. Because his henchman's motivation is that crime group killed his brother or something, and that's the only reason that he's working with Black Swan and doing what he's doing. So he needs Black Swan to keep thinking that Deadpool is the one that did it and not him, I guess. I don't know. But then the henchman guy's not in the room at the beginning with Deadpool when he explains his motivations. And by the way, we didn't really talk about this, but Black Swan's motivation, we're told initially, and it doesn't change much, is he can't stand the mockery that Deadpool is making of what he thinks is like a highbrow noble profession, assassinating and mercenarying. And the last straw for him is his taking out those four guys and becoming a celebrity over it. He's making a mockery of his profession. And so, like, he's ruining the integrity of that business, and so the reputation of it, and so Black Swan's going to ruin his reputation. How would it change anything if he just told Deadpool what happened in the first place?
Yeah, I don't think it would.
Four wins.
I
Thanks, Blue
forgot
Dragon
about
5.
that
Yeah.
by the time I got to the fifth one issue. But yeah, good call. That is really weird.
I don't really understand, except that it needs to be a big surprise for the audience. But then I don't really know how it even would have affected um my read on it. Like, if I knew that from the beginning, like,
Hmm.
or how like I don't know how that would affect my experience reading it.
No, and even like as a twist, my reaction was, "Oh, okay." Like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, like what does it do for Deadpool's character arc that like this whole time he thought he did that? Because he wasn't gloating or taking a lot. I mean, he was taking credit for it certainly because it was an advantage for him. But he even kept telling people, "No, it was an accident. I somehow managed it, and it didn't. It magically didn't affect the way anybody looked at it." I also kept thinking, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I also kept thinking Deadpool has no real credibility in this world, right? Like before he kills the Four Winds, the Rhino doesn't even know who he is. I thought that was weird. They're like, Rhino had never heard of Deadpool. So, this mercenary guy, his family's been doing this for 300 years, or whatever it is he says. And he is real high in that business and has a good reputation and is well known. If he goes in that community and says, no, Deadpool didn't kill those guys, it was me, I think most everyone would believe him.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure.
I'm
Well,
not
and
sure what the
even,
problem is exactly.
a lot of the people that are like obsessed with Deadpool are like Hydra agents, one aim guy.
Plushy DX says Deadpool will tell people, like maybe that was the motivation, but I don't even know why that would be a bad thing for Black Swan because he's working under a pseudonym. Nobody
Well, it
knows
would be
who
a
he
bad
is or
thing
where
for
he is.
Deadpool, I would think, because then he wouldn't be famous.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Said, well, and it would be a bad thing for Deadpool because that's the only reason that he's successful now.
Yeah, exactly. I would think that he would want that to get out, and I mean Deadpool wouldn't have any actual reason to tell people that. But I would just think, how would it affect the story in any way if you just told him that up front?
Hmm. Yeah, no,
Maybe
it's just
maybe it
kind of.
wouldn't. There's something I'm not thinking of, but that just I couldn't see the logic in it.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it doesn't make a lot of sense outside of just we need a twist, but it's like not surprising or impactful either.
Um, Pretty typical early 2000s Marvel art with it as far as these kind of like uber violent raunchy kind of books go. Like I didn't find it horribly distracting or difficult to look at, but it wasn't super impressive either, and it had a kind of in the faces especially kind of a manga inspired style that I wasn't sure really fit the material.
Yeah, I thought that element was strange because I also picked up on like the kind of manga influence, but it also like I thought the art was just kind of overall okay.
But yeah, so I didn't love this as much as a lot of people seem to, and like I thought bits of it were amusing, and it was an okay read. Like I didn't hate it or anything, but I didn't like it as much as most of the Joe Kelly stuff I read, and I didn't think that it had the kind of pathos and the kind of haunting element that does until that last issue. And there are a couple places where Deadpool is really sadistic and not very heroic like he is in Joe Kelly, but it tended to kind of come out of nowhere, and I felt like I was almost reading two different characters that were contradicting each other. You have that bit where in that again, I kind of read just for a joke in that second issue with the old man collector and his really young wife, where he just sets a gun down and then one of them kills the other and you don't know which one does. Like that's old school kind of typical like crazy Deadpool stuff, where he's a sadist, but there wasn't a lot of that, and I wasn't sure why he felt the need to do that, except he just hated these people. Like, I'm supposed to hate these people, so it's fun that they're, kind of having tryouts.
AMC Comics, I would like Deadpool a lot more if he just quoted Jack Sparrow. I'm not gonna lie.
What was he saying?
He said that he thinks Deadpool should have a scene where somebody says, "You're the worst mercenary I've ever heard of," and he says, "But I have heard of you. Oh, you have heard of me. Sorry."
I think
Which
it's
is
really
the
interesting.
first Pirates.
Maybe this will sound like shots fired to you, Austin, but I think it's really interesting that you're as big of a Pirates of the Caribbean fan as you are, given that you don't like Deadpool, because I feel like Deadpool's popularity in mainstream culture kind of starts with characters like Jack Sparrow.
That is fair. I think there's like a certain type of humor though, where it's like, I'm not as into that. And also, I like all those movies as guilty pleasures, except for the first one, which I think is legitimately really good.
Yeah, I do
And
too.
he was not written that way. That was just like a Johnny Depp thing, and everybody involved was like, "Oh my God, he's ruining this movie. What is he
Wow. And
doing?"
then that's the thing that became
Mhm.
huge. Like, that's a lot of the success of those.
Yeah, so I think I've always had that with that franchise, where the first film he's just like a character, and then the sequels are trying to write to that performance. So it's there's also that too.
Blue Dragon 5, we did talk about this a little bit earlier, and you might have come in later, but he says, what did you think of Deadpool's secretary Sandy and the abuse story? I just needed it to be more in the forefront. It like we were talking about earlier, it kind of came out of nowhere. There were little hints of it, and I guess I can see the other side of it, because it's kind of nice to think there's like real things happening with other characters in the background that don't have to be related to the A story, where like people are living their own lives and there's maybe this other story that could be told about this person if only that was our central, focal point character. But it also read as too conveniently timed with that last issue, where finally that all comes to a head at exactly the same time as the Black Swan thing is coming to a head, and that seemed kind of too easy to me. I'm kind of lukewarm on the character herself, I guess. Like, she's fine. I don't know.
Yeah, she didn't really leave an impression. She's secretary lady.
I thought it was interesting. Like, she's a strong enough female lead, I guess, or not lead, but like supporting kind of character. I liked how proactive she was in trying to help Deadpool get anywhere in the story. Like, I kind of like the idea of what happens if Deadpool fully regenerates when his bones aren't set. I thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, that's something I've never really seen before. That was kind of interesting.
Uh, and I also thought it was kind of, and I don't know that I would have had this thought reading this in the early 2000s, so I don't mean to bring like modern sensibilities too much to this, and it's so weird saying that because this doesn't feel that long ago, but it's almost 20 years ago now. It is weird to look at super sexualized women written by a female writer who I know is a major feminist. I just think that it's kind of interesting going back to this 20 years later.
That's the funniest thing in the book.
You think?
Now that you say it, yeah, that is pretty funny.
You've got a lot of these. I mean,
With the exception of the Bush thing, but that is funny too.
There's a lot of this all over Marvel and DC at this time, of course, but you have super exaggerated female forms, but also just a lot of kind of like backside shots, real close up, and that kind of thing, where you've got this really over sexualized looking secretary who's not written that way at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly, and everybody's wearing just super revealing outfits.
I mean, this might as well have been drawn by Greg Land.
I'm surprised nobody once said to Deadpool, "Hey, is that a rhino, or are you happy to see me?"
Exactly.
It
Real
is that
quick,
kind of book.
real quick, did you have any thoughts about the way this ends?
Um, it was like, oh, okay, I guess that's over. And then we get bloopers, like it's a TV show, which is kind of strange
It is.
because I always thought, the whole fourth wall breaking thing was that it's a comic, not a TV show. But
Blue
I don't
Dragon
know.
5, I always liked her practical role in the story as Deadpool becomes so successful. He needs a secretary, and there's a nice friendship between them. Yeah, I wasn't sure if she was established right before this or if Simone brought her in. It read like she was just brought in, like the Deadpool Inc. thing started uh, after the Four Winds thing, but I wasn't totally sure because I didn't read what came right before this. And knowing that now, I'm going to really double down on the point that this, and it was obviously not Simone's fault, but like this needed more issues to really develop that friendship because it reads nice and heartfelt on the page in certain places, but then pretty genuine, I guess. But then you get to that last issue, and it just feels like we're supposed to have lived with these characters a lot longer than we have. Maybe it would feel more like that if you were reading it month to month. Yeah, I've spent 5 months with these characters.
And I guess Taskmaster also really likes her. I don't think they shared a scene outside of the one.
Yeah,
but
I'm not sure why he cared enough to go kill her evil boyfriend. I did like Deadpool and Taskmaster's friendship, because I thought it was kind of interesting that these guys who kill people for a living, you have a lot of no honor among thieves, kind of that sort of theme in this book, but then you also get the flip of it where those guys seem to genuinely care about each other, and Taskmaster's a real unlikely character to do that with, so I thought that was kind of a fun idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's kind of cool when you bring in.
Oh, I see. So she was introduced before, but didn't get a lot of panel time, probably. Blue Dragon 5 says Simone introduced her in her Taskmaster story, and Taskmaster recommended Deadpool hire her. Okay. I don't know where she wrote Taskmaster before this.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing.
Interesting. Well, somehow we've talked about this for a whole hour.
It's always the way. I don't know how we do it.
This is the way. It's crazy. Anyway, did you have any final thoughts about this before we wrap up?
Yep, you guessed it. Frank Stallone.
Well, folks, thanks a lot for watching another request. Let's find out what we're doing next time, Austin.
I forgot to ask you last time. So
I actually
what are we doing?
even know. Let's see. Oh, you know what? We have to tackle a Connor request.
Oh, not that guy.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my notes here. Connor wanted us to watch a movie called Straight Story, and I don't know what that is or anything about it, but that was the last of the requests that he had on the list.
I mean, I'm sure it'll be straightforward with not a lot of twists and turns, so that'll at least be something.
That'll be something new that we're not really used to.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
If you would like to make a request for the ReQuest, you can always join the $15 tier on Patreon. That's patreon.com/geekvolution, and that will allow you to request a comic for review, either a miniseries or a graphic novel. You can ask for a TV pilot or a TV episode of something that you know at least one of us is pretty familiar with, and you can also request a movie there, which is the majority of what we do on the show, and we'll finally come back and do that again. Also on Patreon at just the $2 tier, you can get access to Geekvolution After Dark. I guess these days we call it Captain Logan After Dark. I don't know why, because it's the only show where we have a big panel now. And then you also can get access there to our Discord, our Patreon Discord. We also have a public Discord if you haven't joined that yet, and that's available for everybody. And also, at the $10 tier, you can become a Patreon producer, and I want to start doing this at the end of more of our live shows because I haven't had a chance lately, just with how busy I've been, to sit down and really do the planning it takes to do a rewind, even an unscripted one. So let's say thanks right now to all of our Patreon producers, shall we? And that That includes Zach, he has no last name, Wendell Jones, Michael Micheletti, Michael Gulick, Kareem Roberts, Jacob Schneider, Damon McGay, Thomas Edgehill, The Day Ghost. Hey, look, you're still on here, Austin.
That's me.
Super Billy, Stone Gassman, I want to thank you for your support. Back Studios, Jojira, Ian McKee, Hot Soup, Gooster, Elliot Slater, Dylan Musciello, Chewbacca's Lover, Checkers the Inventor is brand new here. Thanks so much, Checkers, for your support. And Blake. And once again, you guys are wonderful. Thanks to all of our patrons. And he also has no last name. And
yeah, you should have ended it with, and then there's Blake.
Thanks to everybody for watching, and thanks to all of our patrons. And we'll see you again real soon. Tomorrow night, I'm not going to be broadcasting anything because I'll be seeing The Batman, which, of course, I'm really stoked about. Thursday night, we're going to have a regular Captain Logan show, and I want to ask we might do it Batman-themed, or it might not The Batman. We might do a Batman-themed show, or it might just be a regular Captain Logan show. Please, nobody spoil anything about that movie on that show. I will not be reviewing it that night.
Do a no Batman show. Nobody mentions anything
about Batman at all. That actually might be the smarter way to go. Friday night, Austin and I are going to be doing, and this will start a little later than normal, unfortunately, but Austin and I are going to be doing a series of commentaries on the Batman TV show, unrelated, of course, to the movie, but we thought it would be fun to do something on that show since it has the same title. And if you would like to nominate an episode for that, you can go to our social media tab on YouTube, the community tab, and I've posted a thing there, and you can respond to it with an episode that you'd like us to cover that night. We're going to be doing a mini marathon, and we're going to do one solo episode, one singular episode from every season of that show.
Which we might have run into trouble with, but there's a lot of good suggestions on there so far.
I'm really excited to do that, and we will watch those ahead of time, so we'll be prepared for that. And so we're not going to do that one blind. Not sure if I'm broadcasting anything on Saturday yet, and then Sunday night will be the Batman the Batman spoiler cast. So look forward to that. And in the meantime, I was Captain Logan, and this was The Day Ghost.
I am Vengeance.
I don't know, chimichanga reference?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I should quote Deadpool instead. I think I left the oven on.
I feel like I approached this show with minimum